The fly you see in the vise is called the Grey Boy Buzzer. So without further ado, let's get into it. The hook in the vise is a Hanak H300 barbless hook. It's on a medium wire and it's finished in black nickel. This one's at size 10. The thread I'm going to be using today is from Semplify. It's Nano Silk at 200D. As you can see, it is also black. Now, first thing I'm going to do is get a little bit of super glue onto the top of the shank just to help bed my thread in. I'm just going to spread that up the shank slightly, and then I'm going to get a few turns of thread on. I'll take away my rat's tail. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to be using some of Uphaven's breather yarn. You can use floss if you've got white floss, but this is just gives you a really nice effect. It's dead handy. So I'm going to catch that in like so. I'm going to take away this bit at the end here because it will just get in my way, and obviously my breather's not going to be this long, so I'll take away a bit of that as well, just to make the tying of the rest of the body easier. Now I've got some flexi-floss here. It's on a spool. Can't remember where I got this. I've had it for a number of years. It'd take forever and a day to use it all, so it's lasted quite well. So the next thing I want to do is I want to catch in my flexi-floss, and I'm going to just clamp down fairly tightly onto that, and then as I come back I'm just stretching that flexi-floss so it's as thin as I can get it. You obviously don't want to put so much force on the flexi-floss as you'll break it, but you do want it nice and thin. Take it all the way down to round the bend, and the next thing I'm going to do on the way back up, I'm going to catch in a very thin wire. This is Semplify's 0.01 millimeters, and I'm going to catch that in on my side. Now this time, before I go up, I'm just going to encourage my thread to flatten out slightly. I want it nice and flat. Now you can do this with thinner threads, but it just takes a lot longer. So with a 200 denier thread, it's fairly thick, and it is tricky to finish the fly neatly, but for building the body and the thorax, there's nothing much quicker than 200 denier, which is what I'm using here. Now I can see my thread's just tightened up again, so I'm just going to encourage it to flatten out by giving it an anti-clockwise spin, and then I'm going to just make sure I'm getting all that wire covered up. It's kind of sneaked round to your side, but that's not a big worry. I'll get a few extra turns into my thread wraps there, and then what I'm going to do is use the rotary function on the vise to bring my flexi-floss rib up the fly. Now after a couple of turns, I'm just easing the pressure on it ever so slightly, so I do get a kind of pronounced rib. I'll just keep it coming, and then as I get near the top, I've hardly got any pressure on the flexi at all, and then once I'm in the thorax area, I can come over the top, catch that in, don't know what happened there, but the flexi ribs survived. Then I can take away my excess. Now again, I'm going to get just a half hitch in to make sure that when I'm bringing the silver rib up, it doesn't go anywhere, just in case I misjudge the number of extra turns I've put in. because if it gets slack at all, the flexi-floss will just escape and bounce back right down the fly. So I've still got a bit of work to do at the thorax here, so I'm not overly worried about getting too many extra turns in. So I don't really fish this fly myself, but I got a message on Facebook actually asking if I would tie the grey boy buzzer. Now, so what you might be asking, well, why don't I fish it? Because it's quite a famous pattern and it's no doubt very effective. But the reason I don't fish it is quite a time consuming buzzer. You know, it takes a lot more effort to tie up a grey boy buzzer than it does to tie up a simple quill buzzer or a vicar for that matter, which is just a quick easy tie and super effective. You know, the buzzers, the vicars and the quill, they just work exceptionally well, and I've never felt the need to get much more fancy with the buzzer, so I don't really fish it. I mean, not that I wouldn't. If I had a supply readily available, I'd be more than happy to fish this buzzer. It certainly looks the part, but I don't fancy tying up 30 or 40 for my boxes. It would take a while, so I don't really bother. So that's me got both my ribs up the side of the buzzer. That breather is still looks a bit long, but there's still quite a lot of work to be done at the front of the thorax here. So for the cheeks, I mean, traditionally it's a deeper orange, but I'm going to be using some goose biots here. As you can see, it's a sunburst orange that I've got in my little bag of goose biots. I'm just going to take these off. Should have done it earlier before we started. So I'll tie in my side first. Now if you were of a mind to, and probably if I was wanting to tie this so it was super neat, I would cast off the 200 denier and go down to something like a 50 denier just to finish the fly. But for actually ease of use, you can't do much harm with the thicker thread. So what I'm going to do now is I'll start to build my rugby ball thorax here. And once I'm content that I've got the shape I want, I'll bring it to the front, and then with the goose biots. Now at this point, if you wanted, and I've done it in the past with some buzzers, you can put some pearl over the top of the thorax. Just makes it glisten a bit more in the water, but it's not completely necessary. So I'm just going to bring my goose biots forward. Now I'm going to catch these in with a couple of loose turns, and then I'm going to just check that I've got it right on your side and it's right on my side, and then I'll just tighten everything up there. And once I've got a couple of really tight wraps, I can grab the goose biots, and like a wire rib, I'm just going to helicopter this away. Now what I don't want to do is end up with my breather blocking the eye, so I'll come in front of the breather and just get a couple of turns in. Now with this thicker thread, when I come to whip finish, I'm just going to do 2 turns. Then I can tighten everything up there, and my breather's out the way of the eye. Just I'm going to damp my fingers down and just keep that breather right out the way. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to seal the fly. Now there's a few ways of finishing off this buzzer, you can use coats of varnish, which is very time consuming, and I don't want to use that method today because, you know, the fishing season's coming. We need to get flies tied and get them in our boxes. So first off, it still takes a bit of time, and I will speed up the process for you with the magic of video, so you're not hanging around. But first thing I'm doing is getting a coat of super glue all over the fly, and you've got to allow time for this to dry, and that's where the video magic's going to happen. And we're back. Now this may have dried out, so what I'm going to do is just come in and soak it down again, and the rest of the fly is nice and dry. So the quick way of doing it obviously is UV resin, and I like to use the Solaris for these jobs because the brush is just excellent. You can be very accurate getting the varnish on, or the resin should I say, onto the fly. Now make sure I get that front bit underneath my breathers in place. Now you can give this a couple of coats if you wish. I find that generally speaking for fishing flies, one coat does the job. There's no need to go mental coating these up. So once I've got that coated up, I'll come in with my UV pen, keep my hand on the button there, and you probably got strobe lighted to death. What I might do is, the next time I come in and put a coat on, I would concentrate on the thorax end, just to make sure that's nice and thick. That is more or less, in fact I am going to do that just to show you how effective the resin can be. Now in the past, and even now actually, I think there are still resins out there that go a bit cloudy, but I can wholeheartedly recommend the Solaris. It's been very good over the years for me, and I had a batch of stuff recently from Uphaven. They do their own resins now, and what I think I'm going to do to save a little bit of money is I'm going to buy the Uphaven stuff, which is just as good as Solaris, and it's just much cheaper. I'm going to get the Uphaven stuff and I'm going to squeeze the bottle into the Solaris bottle so I can keep my little brush, which I really like. So buzzers, varnish buzzers, they're going to sink fast, and you can fish them either straight lined or you can fish them on the bung. Now these curved hooks, I like to fish these on the bung, and for some reason I just prefer fishing them. If I'm fishing static, I like my buzzers to be like this. If I'm moving them, I more often tend to go for the straight hooked variety. But there we go, there's the Grey Boy buzzer. I hope you enjoyed that. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.